You gain control over JK Rowling's Twitter for an hour. What random information do you add to Harry Potter lore? In the 1970s, after being fired from his defense against the dark arts position, one ex-professor hid within the school by repeatedly casting an immobility charm on himself so he would seem like a statue. He mostly did this for free food and vindictive pranks against the staff. Dean Thomas fixes West Ham matches. Crookshanks is a descendant of Professor McGonagall from when she took a feline sabbatical in the 70s. The entire Weasley family dyes their hair. The fat lady in the portrait that guards Gryffindor Tower was actually a muggle that Godric Gryffindor loved named Ricin Honeycutt. Ron doesn't like raisins. Dumbledore is a nasty basketball player. Loves the muggle sport. Rasputin got expelled from Durmstrang for being a drunk. Edit. And that's how he healed Alexei every time. To the bafflement of doctors. Using magic. Luna started and ran a very successful cult after graduation. Mary Poppins attended Hogwarts. The Goblet of Fire was powered by clean-burning propane and propane accessories. Harry's ugly. Objectively ugly. People just don't mention it because he's the chose one. His one redeemable feature? His eyes. That's all he's got. When people don't know what to compliment him on, they talk about his eyes. Dobby had a combat deployment to Mordor. Seriously. The cursed child is not canon. It was a dream Harry had while on the run in the Forest of Dean. Mockingly, Hermione, to please her dentist parents, subconsciously used magic to keep her teeth clean. She never had a cavity. Until she ate a crunchy bar. Harry is actually an incredibly weak wizard. The only reason he does anything of worth is the power he gets from Voldemort's soul being trapped in him. After he beats Voldemort and the last bit of his power leaves, Harry goes on to be barely able to cast even the most basic spells. That should piss off the fans. There were never Weasley twins. It was just one sibling moving very incredibly fast. There's a Voldemort copycat wizard in 2022 who makes his NFT collection into Horcruxes. Voldemort was a huge Michael Jackson fan. At the age of 48, Harry became the headmaster of Hogwarts. At 49, he stepped down after being found in the bath with Myrtle, repeatedly. Harry Potter wants to let fans know that he loves baked beans. Super small and super silly, and I'm probably missing a whole bunch of things to make it make sense. But I would say that Hagrid was kind of like Lockhart in the sense that if an animal passed naturally in the forest and the items could be donated to the students, then he would do so. If not Hagrid, then someone else in the school. Which would sort of explain the crazy prices in the world. Why a unicorn hair is super expensive, but once incorporated in a wand it's dirt cheap. 'Cause Hagrid likes to comb unicorn manes and the fallen hair gets sent to Ollivander's wand shop so he can make wands for a very affordable price for students who typically wouldn't be able to afford them. Ron eats pineapple on pizza, and dragons are all allergic to crabgrass. Mary Poppins is Minerva McGonagall's mother. Mr. Weasley often went to McDonald's for a Big Mac combo and a Happy Meal. He has a large collection of toys from every Happy Meal he ever had, including double-ups, and is still trying to understand their meaning. He does not tell Mrs. Weasley under any circumstances, as she always packs him a homemade lunch, which he gives away to his colleagues, resulting in some embarrassment after several saucy notes were discovered in his lunch. He now checks for notes and still indulges his delight in a good macas. Dumbledore is actually 3 kids in a wizard robe. I just make up some random stuff that has no consequence to the stories whatsoever. Let's try some. The age of consent in the wizarding world isn't 18. It's 32. The Ministry of Magic is based on the former governing council of Constantinople. There is a wizardry version of Olympic curling that replaces brooms with baby diapers. There are no bananas in the wizarding world. They only exist amongst muggles because of a 3,000-year-old joke that backfired. Thanks to their unanticipated popularity, entire wizard careers are now dedicated to producing bananas to ensure the muggles don't find out. The color blue is prohibited at weddings. That, just like the X-Men, it also exists in the Marvel Universe. Ron is way into harem anime. That the entire HP book series is actually what Frodo is writing at the end of LOTR. Arthur Weasley was fired from his job as head of the misuse of Muggle artifacts on grounds he knew fuck all about Muggle artifacts. He lied on his resume as he had 4,000 kids on no income and they were desperate for coin. Luna ran a hippie commune after graduation for a few years, then was recruited by the Laundry. Oh, and by the way, Neon Genesis Evangelion is an actual religion in the Harry Potter universe. One of the Weasley twins was actually hyper-fascist and everyone but the other twin knew. And nobody talks about it because they aren't sure if the one that survived was the Nazi. And can't bear to ask at the risk of tipping the potentially unaware one off. Dumbledore was just like Gilderoy Lockhart. Except he never got caught. Muggles used to be a term used worldwide. But the US just had asterisk to be different and chose a different term. Nommage. In 1788. By 1819, many countries developed their own terms, with the French deciding on non-magigis, and Japan choosing muryoku. There are Muggle scientists that know about the existence of magic. But the governing bodies of their home country interfere and magic is used to drive them insane if they threaten to expose its existence. There is absolutely sex magic and classes to teach it. Nymphadora Tonks used to teach it while training to be an Auror. At one point she was very passionate about sex magic being taught for educational purposes but changed her mind after learning that Bellatrix Lestrange used it on Frank Longbottom when he was being tortured by her and other Death Eaters. The Habsburgs originally had magical blood but the generations of inbreeding to try and keep their blood pure led to them losing their magical traits and were eventually excluded from the magic society. Now modern pure blood families mock them for their stupidity and inability to breed correctly. Sex magic. I'm adding sex magic. Only used by wizards and witches over 18. Millennial wizards switch to self-refilling ballpoint pens and ditch the quills, much to the dismay of boomer wizards. I'm making a Marauders-era television series. She'd be locked into it then. This is based on a true story. Harry was never riding the Nimbus. It was all natural. That Voldemort was a Fed double agent who tried to stop the radicalization of wizards and actually is the good guy of the whole story. I would turn Hagrid into Swagrid and he will start a career as a rapper. Hagrid is an ex-stripper. The wizarding world is relatively small. James and Lily Potter were second cousins. Mrs. Norris is an animagus. Every night she turns back into a human and gets freaky with Filch. My immortal is actually canon edit. Fangs for the award. Hermione has been secretly having an affair with Victor Crumb behind Ron's back. Dumbledore and Gandalf are pen pals writing to each other about their respective universes' events and goings-on. There are scam spells that are sold on wizard porn sites that promise to enlarge your penis but instead just teleport all you money from your wallet. Wizards didn't really shit in their pants and then disapparate the shit. I was really drunk that night. Sorry. Fans. Sirius was a furry. Enough joke answers. How about some really interesting stuff? The Apollo moon landings were indirectly responsible for Voldemort's rise. The idea of Muggles developing the technology to land on the moon really scared many wizards, especially older purebloods. It made them feel threatened by Muggles to the point they were more willing to side with Voldemort. It's no coincidence that the First Wizarding War began in 1970. A year after the moon landing. though it is very rare. An animagus can take the form of an extinct animal. One of the few known examples of this was Annabel Blackburn, an Magi archaeologist who made many significant studies of ancient wizarding societies. Her animal form was a Deinonychus, a feathered dinosaur with scythe-like claws on its feet. Delphine is not Voldemort's biological daughter. Although they are distantly related, she was an American descendant of Isolde Sayre, and the only surviving relative of Salazar Slytherin besides Voldemort himself. Believing he was the only true heir of Slytherin, Voldemort abducted her and modified her memory, convincing her, and everyone else, that she was his child. All but the most loyal Death Eaters were unaware of her existence. During Voldemort's lifetime, there was serious discussion among magical and Muggle governments regarding whether to deploy military forces against the Death Eaters. This was only actually done once. In 1995, when Death Eaters and Giants attacked a West Country village, and a pair of Scorpion light tanks were used to kill them. Cornelius Fudge was outraged that this was done without his consent, and issued a ban on any more of it. Hogwarts's defense against the dark arts teacher since 1998 has been Irene Lumina, a former Auror and one of the most respected experts on dark magic. With Professor McGonagall having become headmistress, she is now the head of Gryffindor. Notably, she is also Hogwarts's first transgender professor. The giant squid that lives in the lake at Hogwarts is not a typical giant squid. At least not the kind Muggles would recognize. It is actually a kraken, an immense squid that is the largest magical creature in the world. In 2019, the old beast being system used for classifying magical creatures was replaced with a more inclusive, sentient, non-sentient system, in which creatures that had previously refused classification as beings on moral or ethical grounds were now classified under the more neutral category of sentient. Such creatures included merpeople, centaurs, leprechauns, acromantulas, sphinxes, kitsune, and mothmen.